Hello, welcome to an askreddit video. What's something your parents did that you'd never do with your kids? Use my kids' words against them. I told my mom I was once suicidal. She called me crazy and uses it to win our arguments. I don't trust her anymore. I wouldn't make my eldest child raise their younger siblings. Growing up, I was 8 years older than my sister and had so much pressure put onto me. Constantly left home alone with her. Cooked, cleaned, made sure homework was donned. Basically being the parent. As much as I love her, it shouldn't have been my responsibility to care for her and should not be forced onto anyone. Use guilt and shame as a punishment tool. Leave me and my brother to be raised by our grandparents, then complain about how we don't trust them as much or how they weren't there for our firsts when they finally think they're ready a decade later. Also, speak a language that we didn't understand so they have a secret language, then complain when we do the same to them. I would keep their secrets. I had told my mom in confidence that I was having sex with my long-term boyfriend when I was in high school. She got drunk and mad at me for something and texted my whole family telling them what I told her. Basically to embarrass and shame me. But after that there is no trust. Give them the cold shoulder until you did what they wanted even though they never told you what they wanted and expected you to know. God, I fucking hate that shit. It made me feel like an absolute failure for years until I managed to convince myself that I was a good kid, and if the parent wanted something done or said, there needed to be communication and not just an expectation waiting to be filled. Baby me. I wasn't prepared for the world in the slightest. It was my own fault to a large degree. But God, I wasn't prepared to adult after a lifetime of getting everything taken care of for me. I appreciate and love my parents for everything they did for me. But they should have cut the cord so I could flounder. All I did was waste 2 years after high school because they kept me afloat. The best thing I did for myself was join the army because I wasn't getting anywhere and I had no motivation, discipline. Not saying I will force kids to join military, but I will force them to work. Sit down with them and show them how finances work. And stress to them the value of a career. Whether that be a trade, an education that leads to a real career, or the military or police. Something they can support themselves with. Spanking. My dad would spank me and my brother growing up when we fought each other. So basically he used physical violence to teach us physical violence was a bad thing. It's probably no surprise that spanking didn't put an end to things. Used as a pawn in some argument they were having. Both my parents smoked. Neither my wife nor I do. I used to go to this after school care for about 3 hours a day. Since I was 5. When I turned 10, my aunt started working there. And as I was one of the oldest, I suppose expectations were high for me. But respect was not. Now, who became the head teacher and the one that rubbed off on the rest of the teachers? My aunt. Guess who treated me the absolute worst? My aunt. No matter how much I complained to my parents, they always said that they already paid for a whole month's worth of care every time. And the time I spent there kind of fucked up my social skills and self-esteem a lot. To the point of considering self-harm right before I age out and things were at their worst. I don't want that happening to my kid. If I have a kid, I'm gonna listen to them when they complain like that. Highlighting multiple things done wrong to them. And I'm gonna fix it. TLDR. Listen to my kids' complaints and act upon them if justified. Not brush them off. Push them in something to the point where they no longer know if it's their dream or yours. Micromanage the fuck out of them and force them to be a doctor instead of the DJ they always wanted to be. Convince them to move in with me when they're 11 and then let them raise themselves by being entirely absent, then kill myself shortly after they finish high school. However, I'm choosing not to have kids entirely. Ride around town in the bed of a pickup truck. Never say that the kid is smart. I think that I developed a complex where I believe I can do well in life riding on my intelligence without doing too much work. I now am shakily trying to build a good work ethic. I think that I will tactfully avoid that word. Smart. Perhaps hardworking. Honest. And kind. Answered because I said so. I generally have a justifiable reason why I won't do or allow something with my 4-year-old. Sometimes I'm lazy and just don't want to do it. Either way, he deserves an honest answer. I'm not going to have kids. But if I did, I would never shame my kids for masturbating if I caught them like my mom did. I kind of started that whole thing early and lived the majority of my life thinking there was something deeply wrong with me for doing it. I also didn't know what it was until much later on, which didn't help. Demand compliance obedience without explanation. I've reasoned with my kids since they were little and it has paid off. Both in terms of our relationship as well as them being functional young adults who are able to respectfully articulate a point stance opinion while being open to the other side. Have kids. Make them go to church. Make them feel like everything is their fault. No one will like them if they are overweight and no matter what they do they never look good. I was confident until I turned 12-13 and my mother started being emotionally and verbally abusive. I'd never calm my kids down by feeding them junk food. I'd never raise one of my children as better than the other and pit them against each other. I'd never not read a book to my kids. If it weren't for my older sister nobody would have introduced me to the wonderful world of reading. I'd never leave my children for others to raise. I could go on and on. I think one of my biggest fears is turning out like my mother. Become a druggie then leave and kill someone. Spoil them. My father would get angry at me and my mom. So he would verbally berate us. Especially when he's drunk. He would constantly make comments about my weight, my medical condition I cannot control, trichotillomania alopecia, the world's best combo they have, and overall just trash my mom to me and tell all of his friends how horrible me and my mom are and how I totally wrecked their lives. I've always wanted to be a mother and fantasized about having children. When that day comes I want to be the greatest mom I can be and make it a point to always make my kids feel loved. I don't want to drink and I want to get a good job to support them since my father now, and in all my years of life has not worked. He taught me many lessons. Most importantly of which is not to use your kid as a verbal punching bag. Believing they are responsible enough to know when they have an exam or do homework by themselves at the age of 10. Some days I went to school and I didn't even know I had an exam. Smoke. Force my son to tuck in his shirt and scream at him in the true story. My mom used to make my brothers and I tuck in our shirts even up until the age of 16. You'd be at the basketball court and she'd be coming over in front of all your friends and tell you to tuck in your shirt. Looking back now it's kind of funny. I don't ever plan to have kids. Probably because of my father. But if I did have kids, I would never tell my kid that he looks absolutely nothing like me. Therefore he isn't my kid. Abuse my kid. Because he doesn't look like me or have any personality traits that resemble me. Give my other children Christmases they wanted. And my other kid gets nothing but $20 and a Christmas card. Get drunk around my kid. Get drunk and run my kid over with a 4-wheeler. Get drunk and throw a granite ashtray at my wife's head. Tell my kid that he will be nothing in his life. He will never have anything. Never become anything. Never do anything but be a useless waste of space. Do as I say, not as I do. I don't want my kid to smoke. I don't smoke. I don't want my kid using drugs. So I don't use drugs. I don't want my kid to get multiple DUIs. So I don't drink and drive. All things my parents did and told me not to do. Lead by example. Damn it. Lose my temper. Also, I will not buy undeveloped land and decide that my preteen children will give up their summer weekends for years to clear it. Allow my in-laws to treat my child like dog shit because he came from a previous relationship and his skin color is different from theirs. So that he grows up questioning his worth and hating himself. They stayed together for the kids. Taught me bad communication skills. How not to resolve a conflict. And so many other negative habits it's taken me years to break. So much more damaging than a divorce would have been. Be retaliatory. Whenever I saw my parents talk to each other it would almost always start out with one saying something and the other retaliating because of something they misunderstood from the former's comment. Actually teach my kids what is right and wrong instead of my kid doing something and my parents saying, "You should know better than that." How though? I was a kid. I truthfully didn't know any better. When trying to teach my kids a lesson, I wouldn't hold my intelligence over my kids. When I was first learning to do something, my dad would always hold over my head how he could do it better. Sorry for the long gripe. I love my parents. Just some things I've learned from seeing the opposite of how they taught. Compare them to other children, especially siblings. Why can't you be like Bobby? He gets straight A's. All this does is create unreasonable expectations of your child. Pits them against other children. Makes them bitter and causes a slew of self-confidence and inferiority issues. Try instead. Bobby seems to be doing well in class. Let's talk to him and his parents and see what he's doing and see if any of those tactics work for you. If they don't, we can try something else. Beat the absolute shit out of them with a sandal, broom, ceramic plate, stairs, etc. Because they don't call me mom. Oh, and alienate them from their friends because there's no such thing as friends and they will all betray you. Ignore mental issues. I've suffered from anxiety and depression since I was 14. Now I'm 22 and it's manifested into hypochondria, and in recent weeks it's grown into something I'm having trouble handling. All because they refuse to admit it was real. My father tells me to stop being so neurotic. My mom didn't have parents, so the best she can do is make jokes to lighten the situation. Unbeknownst to her, it makes my attacks worse. Parents of Reddit, you are most likely not a psychiatrist. Get your kids help. Please. This doesn't have the serious tag, so I was expecting a lot different results. Without exception, my wife's entire clinical practice consists of people who were beat by their parents as their culture dictated. And with nearly 100% coincidence rate, they all have trust, commitment, intimacy issues. For this reason, I refuse to physically discipline my kids. Honestly, not take them to R-rated movies. My dad took me to see 8 Mile. I was 9. Take their money. Bring up how much it cost to raise them and use it against them. Say I owe them nothing for raising them if I borrowed or broke something of theirs. Or I gave them life, so therefore I can't take it. I will never have kids. That said, as an adult I keep realizing how unhealthy my family is. My parents run on guilt and fear of upsetting others. They don't have good communication skills. I would almost describe it as crippling to them. I'll never make a disgusting dried out meatloaf every single Tuesday for 18 years. I certainly won't disregard the persistent complaints about the meatloaf over the years and force my children to sit at the table until it's gone. And I'll never say you used to love this meatloaf when you were younger, so I don't know where this is coming from. I brought my friend back home once and my mom told him to get out and that she didn't want to see him with me again. Later she apologized and she found out he was a good guy, but I never forgot that. And I will never do that to my kids. Have them. Not spend time with them. I don't remember my mom ever playing with me as a child. Anytime I'd go try to talk to her, I'd kinda just be dismissed and told to go find something to do. She was a stay-at-home mom with nothing to do, so how the fuck did it feel like I was always interrupting something? I'm gonna play with my kids and actually talk to them. Abuse, rape, torture and neglect me. And let other men have sex with me before I was even anywhere near double-digit ages. Then again, I can't have children, so anything they did I won't. Fight in front of them. Not like officially. But my parents used to get into heated verbal arguments in front of me all the time and I hated it as a kid. There was one time they were doing it in the car and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I got out and ran when we were stopped at a light. They chased after me and promised they wouldn't fight in front of me again. They still did. But they never did it in a car again. You can use the bath with water just once per week. You can shower the rest of the week. Okay mom. Uses bath once per week. Do you know how much it costs to take bath? Not too serious. I have my great parents. But don't set a limit for me and then still nag when I adhere to that limit. P. Thanks for watching, have a good day.